Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome. A very warm welcome to you all, and thanks for joining our latest FreeAgent webinar. Today is all about charting your course, navigating your numbers for better planning. Webinar centered all around helping you better understand your numbers. We've just about past 2 o'clock, so we'll endeavour to get started now as we've got a lot to share with you this afternoon. First of all, my name is Mike. I'm a member of the support team here at FreeAgent. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague Nathan over there, also from within the support team. So if you've ever been in touch with the support team for help with a query, there's a very good chance that you may have spoken to one of the two of us. Now at FreeAgent, we understand that now more than ever before, small business owners want to be able to plan ahead with their business. The key part of that planning revolves around the business's financial health. Now this can allow you to make a sensible plan for you and your business. It's therefore important to have a really strong understanding of what position your business is in financially at that moment, so you then can look ahead to make decisions and plan for your future. Now we at FreeAgent, we have a number of resources and tools that you can use to help you get started with this and keep you on top of your financial health. So what we're going to do today is we're going to run through the reports available within FreeAgent in an effort to help you break through kind of that accounting jargon and allowing you to easily digest that information in your reports based on the data entered into your FreeAgent account. Really get a clear understanding of the financial position of your business to arm you with that knowledge to make informed decisions. Now, what I would say is to start off with, don't worry if you haven't looked at any of the reports just yet. This webinar really is the place to give you all the information you need to get going and make the most of these really powerful tools. A few bits of housekeeping that we wanted to cover before we get started throughout the webinar. So we're planning on taking some questions throughout the webinar as we go. So we'll pause at various points through the webinar to take some questions. So if you do have any of these, please do add them to the Q&A box of the webinar in front of you. If you need to adjust the size of the box, you're able to do that on the individual windows. If we don't manage to get to your question during the course of the webinar this afternoon, a member of our team will endeavour to get back to you as soon as we can later on this afternoon. We're not expecting any, but if there are any sound or visual issues, then please, of course, do pop those in the Q&A box and we'll endeavour to sort any of those out as we go. And finally, just in case there's any reason for you to step away during the course of the webinar, a recording will be sent to you tomorrow by email, and it will be added to the events and webinars page of our website either later today or in the morning, so you can refer to that at a later point if you need to. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the reports that FreeAgent has to offer. And what I will start by saying is we're using live data in a FreeAgent limited company. So I'm going to load that up just now. So as I say, this is a limited company that we're looking at here. But by and large, the functionality that we're going to be discussing today will be the same whether you're a sole trader or an unincorporated landlord. So don't worry, and we'll call out any major differences as we go. So the first set of reports that we're going to be looking at the moment are all held. So all of the reports generally are held within the accounting and reports section. And the reports we're going to focus on at the start here are some of our high-level reports. These are reports that are designed to kind of give you an overall understanding of your business's financial health and a real-time understanding of your assets and liabilities. So the first report we're going to be looking at here is the profit and loss report. Now, before I jump into this, you'll see a banner here at the top, which has been left here, and it's entirely intentional just to kind of draw attention to this fact that if you have any unexplained bank transactions, the data in these reports will be incomplete. So we would always encourage you, if you're using these reports, to try and make sure that all of your bank transactions are explained before you get going. And one more thing to call out is actually quite handily today, we've released a new view of the report. So you'll see the report might not look, if you've looked at the report before, it might not look quite the same as it did previously. We've now got a compacted version of the reports, which might be more readable for some people. But you can switch between the old view that we might be used to and this compact view, which we're going to use for the course of the webinar. So diving into the profit and loss. The profit and loss report is perhaps the report that you're almost familiar with or may have used before. And it's a summary of basically the history of your business's trading and its profitability during a given period of time. It can often be referred to in accounting as the P&L, the profit and loss account, or income and expenditure report. And it shows your business's income from sales, bank interest or other income such as grant income, less the total of its expenses. Now, it's important to start off by saying if you're VAT registered, the figures displayed on this report will be exclusive of VAT. It's also important to call out that if the report will be displayed slightly differently depending on whether you're using the traditional accruals or cash accounting. The limited companies like the one we're working on today will default to use accruals counting, whereas sole traders and partnerships can elect to use cash accounting. Now, under cash accounting, the income and expenditure by and large will be recorded based on the date an invoice or bill was paid rather than the date it was raised, like it would be under traditional accruals accounting. So any unpaid invoices or bills will appear in the aged debtors and creditors reports, which we'll cover later on in the webinar. Now, if you're using accruals basis accounting, your business profits won't be the same as your your business bank account balance, because there are likely to be some non-cash items in the profit and loss account, for example. So one of the examples of those is if your business hasn't been paid for all its sales, or if you've purchased any capital assets, which we'll talk about again later in the webinar. And what I would say is all the information that you see on the screen here is populated from the different areas of your FreeAgent account. So when you're adding in your invoices, adding in any bills, out-of-pocket expenses, or explaining your bank transactions, that's all immediately feeding in to this report that you're seeing here. So if we just take a look at the kind of structure of the report, you'll see your income will always appear at the top here, so your turnover. If you've set up any different income categories within the settings area of your account, these will be split out under the turnover heading here. So this is all the income that your business has generated for the period in time that you're running the report. This can be further, any other income that you receive, like bank interest or grant income, will be displayed separately and under other income. And then the other side of this will be the expenses and costs of the business that you've been incurring over the period of time. The first one you'll see, if it's relevant to your business, will be cost of sales. These are costs that are directly attributable to sales that you generate. And all of this top area together will be used to calculate the gross profit of your business. Cost of sales aren't relevant to you, then you would just have your income figures over here. There wouldn't be another entry on the other side for cost of sales. The next section of the report is going to be looking at things that we refer to as administration expenses, and this is generally kind of overhead things. So things, for example, like rent, hosting of your website if appropriate, any internet or telephone, sort of overhead costs of the day-to-day running of your business that you need to capture as you go throughout your days. Further down here, another section that we have is the staff costs. This is all costs attributable to your staff. So this is things like, as you can see in the example we're looking at here, we've got our salaries for our directors, the staff entertaining, and also national insurance contributions, again, coming through payroll. If you also have any staff training or subcontractor costs, then those sorts of costs will also appear under the staff cost section. Now, any transactions that you assign to any accounting categories in FreeAgent that are disallowable for tax, in other words, they can't be used to reduce your taxable profits, those will also be displayed separately in a heading under tax disallowable admin expenses. The main one here we're seeing is business entertaining. And then finally, any depreciation for any capital assets that you've added to your FreeAgent account will also be shown on the profit and loss report for the period. We're going to talk a little bit more about depreciation in a moment, so I won't dive too much into that. If it's not relevant to you, you can just kind of be aware that that's something that could be appearing on your profit and loss report. Now, this next part here at the bottom here we're looking at, this is just for limited companies, so I should just start by saying that is the case. And if you run a profit and loss report for a custom period, so for example, in this report here, we're running it for the current year to date. And what that means is FreeAgent will produce an estimated corporation tax liability for the period of the profit and loss report. And that's based on basically your profits for this period. What FreeAgent will do is it will then annualize those profits for the entire year, and then it will apply the appropriate tax rate, and then it will prorata that down back to the period in question. If you hover over the question mark here, you'll kind of get a more breakdown. You'll get a clearer breakdown on how that actually works. For any limited companies, if you declare any dividends, these will also appear at the bottom of your profit and loss report after tax. These can't be used to reduce your profits. If you are a sole trader, you'll see an entry here for drawings. So that will be the accumulation of any drawings you've taken out of the business or any money that you've added to the business. Again, this will appear after any tax charge because those costs and expenses can't be used to reduce the taxable profits of your business. And then at the very bottom, you'll have your profit for the period in question. You'll also have an entry for any profit brought forward from previous periods. So this is in if you have any previous accounting periods and you have profits that have carried forward, then those will be displayed there and brought forward from the earlier period. That'll either come from your opening balances if you were not using FreeAgent before, or that will automatically go through from the earlier period if you're using FreeAgent previously. And then the final entry here will be balance of any retained profit carried forward. So basically, anything that's not being used up either through dividends or drawings, that'll be carried forward to the next period. And before we move on from the profit and loss report, a good thing to call out and a really useful tool about the profit and loss that can be used for kind of planning is to focus on the different views that FreeAgent offers here. So we were looking at the yearly view for this particular report. So we were reviewing it for the current year to date. But if you wanted more detail on how that information is made up, we've also got monthly views, which you can find by clicking into the tab, and we'll see a kind of a breakdown on a month-by-month basis, along with the total for the year so far. And this just kind of gives you a bit more detail about kind of heavy periods that you might see for income. It can also be useful to finding any gaps in either your income or expenditure, just being able to detect any trends month to month as you're going through your business. You can also do the quarterly view, which is the same, but with divided into quarters rather than months. And then finally, we've got the comparative view. Now, this allows you to compare year on year. So for example, I can look at my accounting year 2023 versus 2024 and get an understanding of my sales levels. Has that improved? Has that got worse? I can see a percentage change in all these different incomes and expenditures, and it's really good for kind of like that planning to understand how your business has performed in the past, how it's performed more recently, and what plans I can make for the future. So that's the first report that we're covering this afternoon. And what we're going to move on to next is still within that high-level section. We can quickly navigate to that by clicking on the profit and loss text here, and then I can choose to switch to any of the other reports in FreeAgent. And the next one up is the balance sheet report. Again, just quickly drawing your attention to that banner about unexplained transactions, highlighting the fact that the information will be incomplete until such time those are used up, or those are explained rather. Now, the balance sheet report is a summary of what the business owns or owes at any set point in time. And this is usually run at the end of an accounting year. In accounting, this can be referred to as the statement of financial position, or in other words, as I say, it's a report for everything that your business owns or owes at a given point in time. And in FreeAgent, these are referred to as assets and liabilities. But what we're essentially saying is assets, things you own or are owed, or liabilities, things that you are due to pay. Now, again, FreeAgent will automatically deal with the double entry bookkeeping. So whenever you're adding information into your account, whether it's invoices, bills, any out-of-pocket expenses, all of those will automatically, if any of those need to impact the balance sheet, then they'll come into here automatically. Now, the first thing we'll often see in the balance sheet, if it's applicable to you, is what are known as capital assets. So these are large items held within the business, like property, machinery, computers, or cars, or things like that. They can also be referred to as capital assets. Now, FreeAgent will also display any depreciation incurred on these assets in the accounting period so that you can see charges for the year. Depreciation brought forward is any depreciation that was charged in previous years. Now, if you want any more kind of detailed information on what to put into that report, what you can do is within the accounting report section, this time we're looking under breakdown, you'll see capital assets. I'll just wait a moment while that loads. And here I can see all the assets that are making up these figures. So for example, this one has been run for computer equipment specifically. So I'm looking at all the assets that have made up this figure. You can see the purchase price, so the original purchase price, and then the net book value is basically the purchase price less any depreciation up to this point in time. And then we can look into these even further if you want even more information. So you can see again the purchase price less any depreciation up to this point so far. And very quickly, I'll just call out that we also look at the tax value here. So this is any capital allowances that are claimed. This is maybe an area more that an accountant would work on, but it's useful to call out that FreeAgent can handle capital allowances, and that can all be held, that can all be actioned within this area. So for example, if I wanted to edit any individual assets and how they're treated, I can come into here and edit the asset. For example, say I know this is actually a main pool asset, and I can also adjust the depreciation frequency. So if I only really care about how much an asset is depreciated once a year, I can change that to yearly rather than monthly, and that will update for that asset. Okay, and so we'll go back to the balance sheet report and carry on from where we are. And so that's basically, this part here is a summary of all those entries that we saw in the capital assets report. And then moving on from the capital assets, we've got what are referred to as current assets. And these are the most common things we'll see here are things like trade debtors. So that's your unpaid invoices. So any invoices that you've raised in the work invoicing section that are currently outstanding, those will all appear there. Another big one will be your bank balance, which will presumably be not overdrawn. If it's overdrawn, it will appear in the current liabilities area. But for most, this will appear as an asset because this is a bank balance that you own. Other things that you might see are things like other debtors and potentially any VAT refunds that are due from HMRC, if that's applicable to you. Moving on down to current liabilities. This, again, is a good kind of snapshot to see because, for example, if you look up here at your bank balance, you think, oh, that's quite a healthy bank balance that I've got there. But then if you were to navigate further down to the current liabilities section, you suddenly see, oh, I've actually got all these amounts due. And it's a really good way to kind of visualize at any point in time how much the business is due to pay to things like, for example, trade creditors as your suppliers, any outstanding bills that have been added, any loan accounts that you may have, hire purchase. I'll come back to that and mention that in a moment. Any amounts due to HMRC like PAYE, NI, any VAT, corporation tax, and things like salary and bonuses that are unpaid at the point that we're looking at, and any director's loan or unpaid expense accounts for, so that could be a mixture of staff, employees and directors that we're looking at there for amounts due to them. And as I briefly mentioned, if you add a bill into FreeAgent as a hire purchase bill, FreeAgent will automatically post that into the balance sheet for you. So this would be if you were purchasing, for example, a vehicle on hire purchase, and that will also be captured automatically on the balance sheet for you. And then so again, what we're trying to say here is this is a very quick way to kind of have an oversight of your business. So I know very quickly how much I own or I'm owed as a business owner. Very quickly can capture that just from this report. And again, how much I'm due to pay. So it's a very quick way to see how your business is performing and what your obligations are for going forward. And then the final section we're looking at on the balance sheet here is shown as owner's equity. So this is this section at the bottom. For a sole trader or partnership, this is made up of money invested into the business, whereas for a limited company like mine, this can include things like share capital purchased by shareholders of the business and any reserves from profits that have been made in the company in previous years. So that is a quick run through of the balance sheet there. I just want to quickly mention again the fact that if you've joined us late or if you're needing to step away for any reason, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar. You'll either receive it by email tomorrow or it'll be posted on the events and webinars page of our website just as soon as we can. And what I think we'll do now is we'll move on to answering some of your questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Nathan, I think you have to take over from there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. That was great. We do have some time now to go through some questions, and we have had some questions already, but please do keep using the Q&A to ask more questions as we go throughout the webinar, and we'll have more time later on to try and answer those. Firstly, we've got a question from Nicola. Nicola's asking, I don't seem to have the estimated tax at the bottom. I am a sole trader. I'm just going to share my screen here. Bear with me just a moment, so I can know exactly what it's asking here. So this will have been related to the profit and loss report. Now, for this webinar, we're going through a limited company, and at the bottom of the profit and loss report, there is a line for an estimated corporation tax liability, but this is only related to limited companies. So if you're a sole trader, it's perfectly normal that you won't see this line here. What I would suggest you use instead is you can go to the overview page, and there is a tax timeline, and this will show you your upcoming tax submissions and amounts that are due. But it's also worth noting that for sole traders, the final amount that you're going to end up paying will only be known once you've fully completed your self-assessment tax return. So that's why it's not shown on the profit and loss page. There just isn't enough information in your account yet. But you'll see everything that's owed in the overview on the tax timeline, or for sole traders, go to taxes and income tax, and then go into the self-assessment tax returns, fill out the pages, and you'll see the figures for your tax there. And we did have another question from Simon. You mentioned needing to update your bank transaction explanations when you're looking at these reports. I find it quick to work through the explanations, but sometimes I put it off as scanning and attaching the evidence takes longer. I think what Simon's looking at here is attaching receipts to your bank transactions. Is there any issue with doing your explanations and then going back and using find and fix to attach things later? And what I'd say in this scenario is, firstly, you can't use find and fix to attach files to bank transactions, but there wouldn't be any harm in working through your bank transactions, explaining them in bulk, just get them all explained. I'll populate your returns, so it'll populate your report so that you know what you're looking at. It's okay if you need to go back a bit later and start adding in attachments to those bank transactions. In FreeAgent, choosing the category is what records that transaction in your account. It doesn't necessarily need to have a file attached to it to be complete. It's very good practice to do so. I'll also point out that there's an area in FreeAgent called Smart Capture, which might help you speed up how quickly you can get files attached to bank transactions. Simon? And last question is from Linda. I'm keen to learn if I can change the format of reports being exported. I only seem to be able to export format CSV, which has totals and headings. I'll just share my screen just again to see if this is helpful. So yes, on the reports that Mike was sharing so far, the profit and loss and the balance sheet, for example, you can export these. Bear with me just a moment while the page loads up. Is the profit and loss, for example, and there's a green button in the top right. You can export it as a CSV or a PDF, but I'm afraid the content of kind of how it's formatted is fixed, I'm afraid. So you might need to manipulate the headings, how things are formatted once you export into Excel or something like that. I would also recommend in the accounting report section, there's a new set of reports called management reports. I'd recommend checking this area out and exporting these, because you can just export this as a PDF and an XLSX file. You can also choose some of the settings of this report and of what's included. And that might help you get a bit closer to what you need for exporting the report. Great, so we'll carry on with looking.
Nathan,
if
you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, go on, Mike.
There's a few questions around calculating depreciation. So just because there's a sort of a common theme, we'll just quickly touch on that. I don't know if you want to go to, for example, if we just go to an out-of-pocket expense.
Absolutely.
Just so we can kind of show you how depreciation will be calculated when you're adding an asset. So we're using adding an out-of-pocket expense as an example here. But what will happen in FreeAgent is when you add a capital asset, as Nathan's doing at the moment, when we get to the point of assigning a category, for example, in this example, computer equipment purchase, you'll see you're given the options for deciding how you want to depreciate it. So, for example, for a lot of assets, the default will be straight line method, essentially reducing the asset for an even amount over the course of its life. So you would set the asset life up for how many years you want to depreciate over, and then FreeAgent, based on the total value, the depreciation method you choose, it will depreciate that automatically. You'll see the other options there for reducing balance, which is quite commonly used for motor vehicles, for example, which is slightly different. It reduces the value, it reduces the balance on the asset each year, and then depreciates at that new value each year. So the asset depreciates over that period of time, and then you can choose the depreciation rate at the box there. And then, as Nathan's kind of pointing to there, you also have the option for certain assets where depreciation shouldn't apply. You have the option to select no depreciation there. So hopefully that's helpful for quite a few questions there around depreciation. Sorry, you can carry on from there.
Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, and what we just did was just throw an out-of-pocket expense. All of those exact same options are found when you're adding a bill or explaining a bank transaction for the purchase of a capital asset. Okay, great. Now we can move on to another report, and we're going to start at looking at the cash flow report. So the cash flow report is found in the top menu under banking, and then bank account. Sorry, banking and then cash flow, pardon me. Okay, so the cash flow area, this is designed to provide you with a visual representation of your projected cash flow over the next 90 days. This can be used to better understand whether your business is currently operating in a cash surplus or a deficit, and this is going to be quite useful for helping you make your business planning decisions. On this page, you're going to see a snapshot of your current bank account balances, all as at today's date. And if you have any bank accounts that you don't want to include in this view, you can look at the settings area and kind of turn them on and off to exclude any that you don't want. There's also a forecasted amount for your incoming and your outgoing transactions for the next 90 days, with a resulting predicted balance in 90 days' time. If the projected balance drops below zero at any point during the 90-day period, FreeAgent will provide a shortfall prediction, which will reflect the number of days your bank balance will be below zero. Also included in this section, just beneath the graphs here, are some suggested actions. These are steps that you can take to help manage your business's financial health and to improve the accuracy of this report to make it more useful. As an example, it will suggest that you should approve or explain any of those unexplained bank transactions to ensure that the data in this report is accurate, and it can also suggest that you should pay some bills, as I've got here. Down beneath the page a little bit more, we've got this incoming section here over on the left. So here, FreeAgent is displaying all of the incoming payments that FreeAgent expects you'll receive over the next 90 days, and this is based on your outstanding invoices. If you have any overdue invoices, FreeAgent will assume those invoices are going to be paid tomorrow based on whenever you're looking at the report. If you know it's the case that an invoice will be paid later, you could hide it from the cash flow report, or you could change the expected date and change the date using the date picker here. Over to the right, the outgoings section shows the payments FreeAgent expects you will make over the next 90 days, and this is going to include any outstanding bills due within that time frame, any recurring expenses, payments to HMRC, or predicted events that FreeAgent has detected. So if a bank transaction repeats each month with the same description for 3 months in a row, FreeAgent will predict this is going to occur going forward each month. Again, you can hide these events using the little 3 dots next to each entry here. You can hide them from the cash flow report or change the expected date if that's required. Just back up to the top right of the cash flow report, we've got the settings button. So in the settings area, you've got lots of ability to customize the information that displays in the report. We can choose manual events, and we can see predicted events, and we can turn these on and off too. back on the cash flow screen, if you notice in the incoming section, any outstanding invoices, you're able to use this page to just send reminder emails to chase those customers for payment, allowing you to more effectively chase your debts and improve your incoming cash flow. You can choose the send reminder button here. And you can also export this report as a CSV or a PDF file. Again, that's back in the top right. You can click the green button and then CSV or PDF. And this is going to provide a reconciliation of the opening balance and the following expected transactions, and then finally the expected closing balance. All these reports that we've discussed so far, they're designed to give you a snapshot of your business in a way that's easily digestible. However, we do have other reports which can be used as part of the, let's say, the day-to-day running of your business. And these are held back in the accounting and reports section. And we're going to be looking at these reports here in the breakdown section here. Let's start by just looking at the aged debtors report. Excuse me a minute. Okay, so the aged debtors report is a list of all of your outstanding invoices from your customers. This report is going to show you a breakdown of all of the invoices that are currently outstanding, grouped by customer, and it will include the invoice date and the due date. And just remember that this report will show you any VAT that was due on these outstanding invoices. The invoices on this report will be split into columns for how overdue they are. So whether that's less than 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, and greater than 90 days. So hopefully that information is going to help you quickly determine which debts have been outstanding for longer and may require more urgent attention. Of course, cash flow is a key part of running any business. So keeping on top of these outstanding debts and ensuring cash is consistently entering the business allows you to spend more time on what you're good at and generate more revenue for the business. From this aged debtors report, you can click onto any outstanding invoice where you can instantly send a reminder email to your customer to request payment. It's also possible to set up automatic reminder emails, if you like, to ensure that unpaid invoices are chased at intervals that you're choosing. To do this, you just need to go to the settings area of your account, settings, and then email templates. And then there's the invoice reminders area. You could set up reminders, you could set up multiple reminders if you want, and perhaps adjust the wording to be stronger maybe with each reminder that's sent out in an effort to encourage payment as soon as possible from your customers. We'd always recommend when you're viewing the aged debtors report that you've explained all of your bank transactions as we spoke about earlier, just to ensure that the information here is all up to date. And this will help you feel more confident in the reporting and keeping on top of those outstanding debts. Following on from the aged debtors report, we come nicely to the aged creditors report. Should let that load up. Okay, so the aged creditors report is constructed much in the same way as what we were just looking at with the debtors report, but this relates to outstanding supplier bills. So this report shows you any bills that you've added into your FreeAgent account but have not yet been paid. From a cash flow perspective, this is key information to help make sure you're aware of your upcoming payments and responsibilities. So this report will show you the amount outstanding, when it's due to be paid, so that you can plan when to make these payments to your suppliers. You can filter the report by bill date or by due date to ensure that you're keeping on top of these outstanding payments. Again, we encourage you to make sure you've explained all of those bank transactions before you're checking out this report. Make sure that the information here is up to date, accurate, and complete. This is a great tool ensure you're paying your suppliers in a timely manner to ensure that you develop and maintain strong working relationships. And it ensures that you're aware of all of your responsibilities so that you don't perhaps use money from the business's bank account or other means before all of these liabilities are cleared. Next up, we can look at another report here called the Customer Sales Report. Again, we're in the breakdown section here. So the Customer Sales Report is another great tool if you've got multiple customers that you invoice through FreeAgent. You could run this report on a monthly or yearly basis, and it's going to show you a breakdown of your sales per customer. If you're registered for VAT, the figures that you're going to see on this report will be exclusive of VAT. So this is just the value of the sales that have been generated and not the VAT that was paid as part of those sales. Pardon me. The customer sales, so the customer sales report, it's useful for lots of different things, and it shows you the breakdown per customer so that you can clearly see where your business income lies and whether it relies on a particular customer too much, perhaps. It's also going to help you consider how you might look to generate additional revenue from other customers and how you can adjust your focus onto larger clients to ensure that their needs are met. You can also use this report to identify trends based on when you invoice so that you can plan throughout the year. For example, you might have a particularly quiet period, which means you're likely to receive less cash coming into the business during that time. Next up, we can go to the spending categories report, and we can navigate to any of these reports by clicking on the name in the top left, just for speed, and go to spending categories this time. This is another valuable tool in your reporting arsenal. Okay, great. So the spending categories report is centered around displaying how much you're spending in each area over a given time period. And you can set this to be monthly or yearly if you like, and choose the date range here. Very similar to the customer sales report, if you're VAT registered, figures here will be exclusive of VAT. So this report is quite useful for showing your spending patterns throughout the year. If you display it on a monthly basis, like we've got presented here on the screen, you can see when you incur certain expenses or whether there are any major fluctuations month on month, for example. Now that's going to be helpful in determining errors or issues with your accounting, or if there are big changes between categories that have been previously displayed for the same amount each month, for example. So having a clear snapshot of where your money is being spent and when can allow you to budget for future expenses and make plans for your business in the coming years. I'll stop sharing my screen now to see if we've had any more questions coming through.
Awesome. Thank you for all that, Nathan. Yep, we've had quite a few coming through as you were going through that, which is great. So please keep them coming. We'll take a little minute just now to go through a few of those and try and answer just a couple before we move on to the next sort of final section that we've got for you guys. I've got one in here from Simona asking, does the amount on the aged creditors show as inclusive of VAT? So just to confirm, for both the aged creditors and aged debtors reports, those do include VAT. And for the final two reports that Nathan covered there for the spending categories and customer sales, those are exclusive of VAT. So that's that one there. Another one actually around a similar area is once you have received an amount from a client which was previously shown as on the aged debtors report, and it sits in for approval, does the debt disappear from the aged debtors report? Now this is for approval, this is referencing FreeAgent's guest functionality, where FreeAgent has tried to help this user with explaining their bank transactions. And so it's suggested that a payment relates to an invoice that they've raised. So if that is the case, that FreeAgent has guessed a payment against an invoice, then that is correct. It will clear away from the aged debtors report at that point. Even before you click to explain that transaction, it will clear it from the aged debtors report. We've got a question in also around going back to capital allowances and having the option to set these as no capital allowances. So I'll just quickly share my screen again on that one just to clarify on that point. So I'll bring that up there. And to answer the question directly, if you would like to have no capital allowances, what you can do is edit the details. And apologies, I didn't cover this, that you wouldn't see the drop down, but you'll have the option there for selecting no capital allowances as the tax treatment there. So hopefully that answers that one. And we've had a few questions around kind of like what categories should be assigned to, for example, accommodation and meals or staff entertaining. It's not really a question we can answer directly because the treatment would vary depending on the situations. So it's really more a question that we would suggest that's more best suited to be answered by your accountant. So if you've got any sorts of questions around that sort of thing, like what category to assign transactions to, we would recommend choosing the most appropriate one and just double checking with your accountant to keep yourself right on those. And another theme was around, can you use FreeAgent as both a sole trader and a limited company? For example, if you've got property held in your name rather than a company. So for this, FreeAgent accounts are for each specific business, so it's not possible to have multiple businesses within one FreeAgent account. So for example, if you have a limited company, you're really focusing on capturing your limited company information in that account. Now, you are still able to actually file a self-assessment as a director of a limited company through FreeAgent within the taxes and income tax section. And we'll just wait a moment while that seems to be taking its time to do that. So you can actually file, you can prepare and file your self-assessment through FreeAgent as a limited company director, but you wouldn't be capturing the individual transactions that make up those self-assessments. So I've got my self-assessment here for me as an individual within my limited company FreeAgent account, and I have the ability to add any dividends or pension income I've received, any tax reliefs that are applicable to me. And also if I had property, I would have the ability in the UK property tab to include any property, but it's a case that the information won't be automatically populated. I would need to put in the figures into the relevant boxes. So it's very much a case that you want to keep your records separate for these, these different businesses and not have them within one FreeAgent account. Now, Nathan, I don't know if you've got any more before we jump into the next section, or shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. I can just answer a couple of quick questions about the aged creditors report. Bear with me just a moment. So Phil was asking, should I have my direct debit in my aged creditors report? And it's a good question. So it's important to remember that the aged creditors report, it's all about bills that you've entered into FreeAgent. They've not been paid yet. So you could enter bills for these direct debits, and if they're not paid, that will show up in the aged creditors report. That's only really one way of dealing with the direct debits. You could, for example, just have those set up and not enter them into FreeAgent and just explain them to the relevant categories when those transactions show up in the banking area. So the aged creditors report, it's only really that you use as a tool. It's not really going to be feeding into like your profit or loss, for example. Very similar question from Christopher. Yeah, I don't add bills to FreeAgent. Will this affect the data? But I do explain subcontractor costs. The majority of Christopher's costs, I just don't upload the actual invoices and bills. So yeah, just to recap that, the bills area is what feeds into the aged creditors report. The bills area, it's just an option for you. We often suggest that you should enter bills for times when maybe you receive a shipment of goods or a service, but you're going to pay for them later. So maybe your supplier gives you 30 days credit, for example. Enter that as a bill. And then whenever you decide to pay that bill and the money goes out to the bank, you can explain that money as a bill payment. Depending on how your business works and what type of costs you've got, you may choose to just not enter bills at all. Just let the money go out of the bank account, and when that's picked up in the bank feed, you can choose the right category. So either way is appropriate. I would always say if you're going to be paying for things later, add them to the bills area. And when the showing as unpaid, it's going to show in the aged creditors area. Great, do you want to move on to the next section there, Mike?
Yes, well, thank you for that. And thanks again for the questions, folks. Again, just going to start sharing my screen on my end. Got a couple more reports that we want to run through in the time we've got. Conscious of time, and we still want to try and answer a few questions, so we'll jump into the next section about some other reports that you'll see in FreeAgent that might be more applicable when it comes to the end of the year. Might be more applicable if you're working with an accountant. We want to call out the fact within this high-level section that for limited companies, there's a final accounts area, which can be used to file FRS 105 accounts to Companies House. So if any companies are a limited company within FreeAgent and they can file using the FRS 105 micro-entity provisions, then you can potentially use FreeAgent to file your accounts. And what you'll find within here is the income statement, which refers to the transactions and the profit and loss. So that information is being pulled over from that area. And then you'll see the other information around the balance sheet figures all populating here. So again, that information is being pulled through from the other areas of FreeAgent automatically, allowing you to then go ahead from this point to actually file accounts to Companies House. Just a quick point here to the micro-entity qualification thresholds. So those are good things to refer to if you're not quite sure if you fit that profile. But again, something to clarify with an accountant to make sure. If it's your first year within FreeAgent and you need to add in any comparative figures for your accounts, you can do that within this Manage Notes and Settings tab. And you'll have a tab here for previous year where you can enter all the figures from your previous year. And you'll also have the options here for any. These are the required notes under these provisions, so you need to enter these even if it's 0. And then there's some other notes if you want to disclose further information in the accounts that you're filing to Companies House. So it's just a really good thing to be aware of that functionality is there should you need it. Again, another thing is if your accountant prepares your self-assessment outside of FreeAgent as a sole trader, or again, if you're a limited company, they might ask you for your trial balance report, which you'll find under the detailed section here. The trial balance report, or TB for short, is a list of all the balances in your accounting categories at any given time. So this is essentially a combination of the figures from our profit and loss, which you'll see here. You can see my sales, my interest, all that, if you remember from the profit and loss report earlier, and all the costs. So it's all the income and expenditure categories, and then all the figures from my balance sheet as well. They're all pulling through into one report. And what can be really handy here is if your accountant files outside of FreeAgent, they can take an export from your FreeAgent account of the CSV, and then if they use a different software to actually make the filing of your accounts or your self-assessment or whatever the case may be, they'll be able to very quickly come in and take that data out and file it appropriately. So really good thing to be aware of. You can also add your accountant to your FreeAgent account as a user if they don't use FreeAgent themselves, and they'll be able to pull this report themselves. Or if they're on a FreeAgent dashboard, then they'd be able to get access to your account that way as well. And one final report that we're going to cover before we get on to any final questions, again back within accounting reports, and this is high-level report here. And it's the performance benchmarking report that we're looking at. And it looks like this. What it essentially does is provide a visual overview of your business's financial performance over time and shows how it compares to similar businesses if you've opted in for that option. So you'll need to opt in to share your data with FreeAgent to allow this report to be prepared, comparing with similar businesses. And so what this essentially will do, actually, another caveat that I should give you first of all is the report is only available for UK businesses, so ones that have the UK account types, and you need to have been using FreeAgent for 6 months to allow the report to have enough data for the actual report itself to be meaningful. So those are sort of some qualifiers that you need to be aware of. When you first load the performance benchmarking report, you'll be asked a couple of questions, which you'll see in the settings area here just now. And those questions will be the business category. So you would choose the most, I realize you won't be able to see this drop down, but you would just choose the most relevant business category for you and your location. So for example, if I was a builder in Southwest England, I could choose that option. and then I would be able to compare myself with similar businesses. And so you would just tick the option yes if I do want to be compared. And as it says here, this will be anonymously sharing your data with other businesses. There's no identifying data in this report. And what it does is it displays your operating profit for each quarter, as you'll kind of see here, broken down into your quarterly income and your quarterly costs. If you've been using FreeAgent for more than 1 year, there will also be comparisons to your performance from the previous year as well. Another thing to just kind of call out is the quarter dates used to generate the report are specific to your business and directly correlate to your business's accounting dates. So for example, if your accounting year runs from January through to December each year, then your quarterly dates would be March, June, September, and December for that year. And by hovering over the individual quarters, as I'm kind of doing now, you'll be able to see what these bars represent. And also by clicking into the view profit and loss report here, you'll be able to see where these figures are pulling from the profit and loss report that we reviewed earlier. And you can also drill down further into what makes up these costs and income figures for each quarter directly. Now, what we're saying here is this report is really useful to compare yourself against your own business historically, if that information is held within FreeAgent. Alternatively, if you've gone with the option of sharing your data anonymously with us, you'll be able to see how you compare with similar business for the previous 3 completed quarters. So using that information, you can kind of get a gauge on how your business is performing compared with similar businesses. And this can allow you to plan and budget how your business performs. So, for example, using an example of perhaps your income is similar to those businesses, but your costs are much higher, you can that can allow you to focus on those individual areas and see, am I spending too much on things that I don't need to be, or vice versa? If the income's much less than your competitors or similar businesses, am I perhaps charging too much for my services? Yeah. It's a really good report to kind of check in on and see how you're performing against similar businesses as appropriate. And that will do it for us in terms of our reporting just now. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing and pass you back over to Nathan just now.
Yeah, we've had some more questions coming through. Thanks for that, Mike. Okay, we've had a question from Kay. Kay was asking, if you use FreeAgent, do you still require an accountant? And the short answer is it's entirely up to you. You can use FreeAgent by yourself without an accountant to look at everything we've looked at today, do your day-to-day bookkeeping, and FreeAgent will prepare things like your reports and your tax returns. And you can file those to HMRC or for a limited company. You can file them to Companies House. We do work with accountants up and down the country. We partner with them, so you can use an accountant with FreeAgent. It's really just a question of it's up to you, depending on how complex the business is or what other services an accountant might offer to you. We'd always recommend that if you're ever not sure about something in terms of maybe preparing your tax returns, if something could go either way and you're not quite sure how that should go, always check with an accountant if you're not sure. So you can do it either way. It's just a choice for you. Joy was asking, how do you add bills into FreeAgent, and is there a way to automatically pay them? So what I'm just going to do is share my screen quite quickly here to just show how that's done so that we can understand how the information that we've been looking at in these reports, how it's populated. And one of those areas is bills. So that's in the top menu, bills. Here you can just click add new bill, and you might be doing this if you've had a purchase invoice from a supplier. Copy down the details here. You can choose a contact, add a new contact. If you like, use the reference, the bill date, when it's due, the currency. It can be for one item, or it could be a bill with lots of different categories on it. Maybe if you go to for example, if you go to if you're a restaurant and you buy from a wholesaler, you might have lots of different line items on your purchase invoice here. And then you can save that bill, and a bill will look something like this. And this is what's going into all of your accounts. This is what's populating those reports. You can do this on the mobile app too. Joy asked if you can pay them automatically. There is a feature for NatWest Business banking customers called Pay It. So that's a feature within the NatWest group. So if you are a NatWest Business banking customer, check out their website and look for the feature pay it, because that's going to allow you to pay bills automatically through FreeAgent. Also, Amanda was asking, is there a way I can create a forecast report within FreeAgent where I can add future bookings? This is going to be helpful in the cash flow area. So, Amanda, I've pulled up the cash flow area here. There's an area at the bottom of the cash flow. You were talking about bookings. So how can I add in future bookings to generate this report? You can add a manual event and choose whether it's incoming or outgoing. So if you've got a future dated booking and you haven't maybe done this work there, you haven't created the invoice yet, you just want to get this reflected in your future cash flow, create a manual event. This one, it would be incoming, choose the date, it might recur, that's up to you, give it a description, give it an amount, and it will show up in your cash flow report. And when you export it, it will come up into the CSV and the PDF too. So that might be a way, Amanda, that you can add future income based on those bookings and have it entered into your FreeAgent account. I just stop sharing my screen now.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nathan. We've still got questions coming in, but I'm conscious of time. So what we'll do is we've got some resources and things we want to share with you. So apologies if we've not been able to answer your question live. We'll continue to work through those over the next few minutes. If we don't manage to answer your question, then we'll look to reply to you directly. So again, apologies for not answering those live. But as I say, we want to share some resources just before we wrap up. So I'm just going to share the screen again on my end, if you don't all mind. And I guess what I would say is thanks again for joining Nathan and I this afternoon. While we've worked our way through the reports available in FreeAgent. So as I say, we wanted to quickly cover some resources that might be helpful in answering any questions that you may have asked so far or may need as you carry on using FreeAgent. And so the first resource for that is when you're working through your FreeAgent account, you'll see a blue little help button at the bottom here, which you can click into. And what will pop up is Ruby the robot, who will ask you a question. And all she will ask you is just, please ask us one question and I'll try and find it for you. So I'm just going to say, how do I pay an invoice, for example? What Ruby the robot is going to do is she's going to try and answer that question using our knowledge-based guides. And straight away, on this particular question, she's managed to answer that question for me. So I would be able to click on that knowledge-based article, get the answer to my question, hopefully, and work my way from there. However, if it doesn't answer my question, and I would rather speak with someone to get an answer from the support team directly, you can use this get in touch button. So it's really just one question to ask. And then if it's during our office hours, you will have the option to start a live chat or leave a message. So leaving a message is essentially just using an email. We offer live chat 9 to 5 every Monday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Fridays. There's just that little difference on a Friday. In those same hours, you can also phone our support team directly or get in touch just by sending an email to support@freeagent.com. You can find our phone number and email address listed on the contact us page of our website as well to refer to later. One thing to note is if you do get in touch with us, we may find it easier to help answer your question if we get a support code from you. And what this will do is allow us to bring up your account on our end and have a look through it with you and answer your question. And it's basically a security step that we take to make sure who we're speaking with is actually the account owner or has the appropriate level of access. But to get this very quickly, you can scroll down to the bottom of any page when you're logged into FreeAgent and select Support Access. I've actually enabled it just now, but when you're looking at it, it will say no. You would just take the option over to yes. And if I had an issue with my bank feeds like they weren't pulling in, I could also enable this option, which would allow the support team to have a bit more information there. And I'll save it, and then you would see your support code on the right-hand side of that screen there. It can also be found within the settings area under Support Access. And as it says here, it expires 30 days after the last account access by our support team. So you can either switch it off after you've done with your question, or it'll just expire naturally after 30 days. And I'll hop you back over to Nathan just for rounding up.
Thank you. I'll just grab that share screen from you. Bear with me just a moment. Yeah, so another great resource that we've got in FreeAgent is our knowledge base. You can find this at the bottom of any page you're on when you're in your FreeAgent account. Just look right down the bottom of the page and look for where it says knowledge base, and it will open up in a new tab like this, and it will say, hi, how can we help? These guides here are just full of visual step-by-step guides, some with easy to follow videos for any process within FreeAgent. You can type your problem into the search bar here. So for example, you can search how to send an invoice, and it will show you how to send an invoice to your contact, how to create an invoice, all the different information you can find on invoices. And back on the home page of the knowledge base, you can also just browse by help topic. So you can choose any one of these areas here. For example, we mentioned smart capture. You can find out earlier on the webinar. You can use this page here to find out more information all about smart capture. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Fantastic. So we hope this webinar has given you the confidence to start or continue using the reports area within FreeAgent and to give you a clearer understanding of all of the information that they provide. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us today. Please don't hesitate to get back in touch with us if you've got any more questions, and have a lovely afternoon. Bye now.
Thanks all.